Welcome to the Flip Lifestyle Podcast, where life always comes before work. We're your hosts, Shane and Jocelyn Sams. We're a real family that figured out how to make our entire living online. And now we help other families do the same. Are you ready to flip your life? All right, let's get started. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Flip Lifestyle Podcast. We are super excited to be with you again today to give you the fifth and final chapter of our story. This is the story of how two teachers from Southeast Kentucky ended up building a massive online business. We want to tell you all of the things that we did to get to this point. For those of you who may be just tuning in, make sure you check out the last few episodes where we tell all of the backstory. That brings us to where we're going to talk about today. We actually have an author that is writing a book about our story, and we thought it would be super fun to record some podcasts to tell you guys everything from the beginning so that you could get the inspiration and hope that you needed to build your own online business and create your own story. In last week's episode, we talked about how we discovered online business, how we figured out how to make money online, and how we made $2,700 off of the first digital product that we sold to just around 200 people, just a little bit over 200 people. That's all we had on the email list when we made our first money online. And this week, we're going to talk a little bit about how we scaled that first initial digital product into the huge online business that we have today. This is an online business that makes us hundreds of thousands of dollars in passive income, a business that lets us have total control over our lives. We literally control every minute of our lives. We don't have to answer to anybody else's schedule, don't have to follow anyone else's orders at a 9 to 5 or anything like that. We have total control of our lives and a business that lets us give our children a life that we never could have dreamed possible. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, my voice is a little shot. I do not always sound like this if this is the first time that you've ever tuned into the Flip Lifestyle Podcast. I am a huge University of Kentucky fan. As most of you know, Jocelyn and I went to the University of Kentucky. We love UK football, UK basketball, and all UK sports. Well, I went to a UK game Saturday, and my beloved Kentucky Wildcats beat the Tennessee Volunteers. So I yelled a lot, and I actually lost my voice for like 3 days. But it's back today, and we're going to jump in here, and we're going to fight through it and continue this story.
All right. We told you in the last podcast about how we had launched Elementary Librarian website and about how I had made a month of lesson plans just to see if they would sell. And lo and behold, we sold like over $2,000. Then we start thinking, okay, how do we make this happen again and again? I continued to write. I did regularly scheduled content every week. Just write about things that were happening in my library and things that were bothering me and that I wanted to help other people with. And in the midst of all that, people would keep signing up for my email list. So I would gather more and more emails. As I was growing this list, I just kept in close contact with people. I would ask them, what types of things do you want me to create? They would respond. I would write about that. I would create products about that. And I just kept this cycle the entire school year of pre-sell lesson plans, create lesson plans, pre-sell the next group of lesson plans. And we just continued to do this all year long. And the sales all year were pretty consistent and even growing some. And so I'm like, okay, well, this is working out pretty well.
It was pretty amazing. We kind of stumbled into the whole pre-selling thing because we were like, okay, it would take months to write an entire year of lesson plans, but we figured out that Jocelyn could just email the people who had already bought and say, what do you want next? They would tell her, she would put that on a sales page and say, hey guys, here's what's coming next. Pay now. They would pay it and then she would make it. And it was just like a constantly ever building thing that entire first year. It was pretty amazing seeing how all that worked. So we get to the end of the school year and we had pretty much consistently made $2,000 to $3,000 extra a month the entire school year. And it was just an absolutely amazing thing to see all this extra money coming in. We'd almost pretty much doubled our income each month just by creating these lesson plans. So we started talking about, well, do you think this can keep going? How can we mimic this? Okay, so I was a football coach and I said, let me do exactly what Jocelyn did. I'll create this thing for my football playbooks, my defense, and I'll go out and build an audience and I'll try and sell it to them. I would stay up hours every night looking for football coaches, looking for message boards, forums, commenting on blog posts, joining Facebook groups, liking Facebook pages for football coaches. I remember that I would sit on Twitter and search for coach I would sit and look at everyone's picture, anyone who had coach in their username, and I would look for people who were on a football sideline. I would friend them and I would follow them and get them to follow me back and send them a message. And I ended up building this small audience or small network of football coaches. So when I created my sales page and I launched CoachXO.com, I was able to send this to them and tell them on Twitter and tell them anybody I had talked to on email. And I got this little following. I even started a podcast called The Coach XO Show. And finally, I created a sales page for a playbook that wasn't even created yet. And lo and behold, I got a bunch of orders for it. I think I ended up making like $7,000 when I launched that product. And it was the same thing. We were like, okay, not only can we create this once, we've now repeated it, and we could probably do it again and again and again by following these same steps.
At this point in our regular life, I guess we didn't really talk about online business a whole lot. We were sort of guarded about it, especially me, because I was like, okay, we're making money, but it's not life-changing money just yet. I mean, it is. Like, it was life-changing for us in some ways.
We didn't know if we could quit our jobs yet, though.
Yeah, so we weren't going to go out and be like, hey, we're doing awesome in online business. We're just kind of keeping it to ourselves a little bit. But people started to notice. We were maybe taking a couple more trips than we normally did. We're
definitely eating out more because we had money to eat out on.
We were buying new clothes and just different things that we probably normally wouldn't buy. We were doing some things like that. We told a few people, like some people who were closest to us. We kind of just said, hey, we're trying to sell things online. We found out about this thing. It's pretty cool. Like, it's starting to work out a little bit for us. And we also stopped hanging out with people. I mean, not completely, but we were busy working on our business. So if people were like, hey, do you want to hang out this weekend? Sometimes we would be like, no, we can't.
As you get into online business and you get into entrepreneurship, you start reading things. You start reading quotes and you start reading books of other successful people trying to make yourself more successful. And you quickly realize that there's a lot of people out there who are taking action, but there's a lot of people who are not. And the people who are not taking action can sometimes hold you back from your dreams and your successes. And there's a famous quote that says, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And we started saying, are we hanging out with people who are out there to succeed, out there to do better? Or are we hanging out with people who are pretty much on cruise control and they're going to stay where they are? Are we doing the things that we need to do to make our lives better? We were starting to have serious conversations about, can we quit our job? Could we do this full time? Could we really take total control of our life? And if we do that, how's that going to affect everything? I heard on a podcast the other day that we all strive to be consistent. We want to be in cruise control. And if we or someone else gets out of line or moves up or starts going faster, other people who want to stay at that same level will pull them back. And that's kind of what happened with us. We had some haters show up, not necessarily telling us not to try to sell things, not to try to start a business, not to try to do our own thing. But it was more people reacting to, hey, you're not hanging out with me as much. Hey, I don't feel like you're giving us as much attention or this core group. Something's different. And it's kind of disrupting my life as well because you're a part of my life. I can remember distinctly this happening. One of the big things I always used to do was hang out in the locker room after football practice. We'd get done practice about 5:30 or 6. Well, all the coaches, we'd go in, kids would leave. We'd sit there for an hour and a half, cut up, have a good time. Nothing wrong with that. But when I needed that time to work on my online business back, Jocelyn needed me to get home and take the kids so that she could work on her online business. And I decided that, hey, when practice was over, I would leave directly from the field and not even go back to the locker room unless it was my day to stay until all the kids were gone. Well, I remember the head coach and the other coaches, they confronted me on this. They were like, why are you leaving? Do you not want to be here? Do you not want to hang out with us? And I couldn't really explain everything we were doing. It wouldn't have made much sense to them. But they just didn't get it. And I can remember some good animosity there. Like, you're supposed to be doing this, supposed to be doing that. And I'm like, no, I'm supposed to coach football and do my job. And then I'm going to go home to my family and try to make my life better. But I can remember that caused a lot of tension with that group of people that I was around because I was trying to do something different.
For me, one thing that I did, we used to, after school, get together and play with friends a lot. And one thing that I had to kind of stop doing was to play as often. We still did. We just didn't do it like every single day. So while Shane would be at practice, I would get together with some mom friends who had young children too, and we would let the kids play and just sit around and talk. But once I had started my business, I was doing my own customer service, so I really didn't have time to do that. that was one of the things that I had to give up, and people probably thought it was a little bit odd.
Yeah, and we noticed that people stopped asking us to do as many things, because when you say no a few times, they're going to stop asking you. But we had to accept that because we knew that we were building a better life for our family, a better life for our children, a better life with each other. And this was so much more important than all that other stuff. And we just really didn't have time for anybody else to get mad or whatever they were saying. It didn't matter. We even had some friends that thought we had fell into a cult or a pyramid scheme or something. And they were like, what are you doing? Is this like multi-level marketing?
Is this legal?
Is this legal? Like a lot of people asked us that. Like my mom, when she noticed we were spending more money, she just straight up asked me if I was selling drugs one time. She was like, have y'all gotten into drugs? Are y'all selling them drugs or something like that? And she was joking. It was so confusing what was happening. Hey, they're not living paycheck to paycheck anymore. They have margin in their budget.
Something's got to be up.
Something's got to be up. That just doesn't happen like that. I even had one friend ask me if I had won the lottery. There's a little place we go to called Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and we travel down there multiple times a year. Well, it's really expensive to go. I mean, you can spend $1,000 bucks.
It's a tourist trap.
It's a tourist trap. But we love to go. It's a good place to get away. But before we were doing it maybe once a year, and now we could do it 3, 4, 5, 6 times a year, because we had this extra cash, and people were definitely noticing what was going on. But even though all that was happening, even though our relationships were starting to change a little bit with people, and we were starting to see that, hey man, life is going to be different, not just in our bank account, but in the way we act and in the way we hang out with people and in the way we spend our time, the business kept growing. Everything was going really, really well. And we actually started having the discussion, can we quit our jobs?
I was absolutely not on board with the idea of quitting our jobs, especially at that point. It just seemed so far out there to me. We were making a decent amount of money, but it wasn't like quit your job kind of money. And Shane was like, we can do it. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think now's the right time. So what we decided to do instead is to make some huge changes in our lives. And one of those changes was to sell our house. And if people didn't think we were crazy already, they really thought we were crazy at this point.
What I was thinking was, if we were doing this part-time, what if we were going to do it full-time? That was my assumption. And I'm kind of a jump off the cliff kind of person and hope the parachute was packed right. So I was like, let's just go in for it. Let's go for it. Worst case scenario, we can go back and get new teaching jobs. And Jocelyn basically squashed that and said, let's wait another year. But we knew that we had to prepare for the point when we could quit our jobs. We knew it wasn't just about the money that we were making. It was about the money we were spending. I came up with this idea to sell our house. We had a really nice house, 2,400 square feet, nice yard, pool in the back, all the good stuff, right? But we also had a very high mortgage. It was what took the vast majority of our money every month. And I figured out if we could sell the house, we might be able to quit our job sooner, or when we did quit our job, it would be much safer. So I, without telling Jocelyn, started looking for houses on like realtor.com, and called a buddy of mine who was a real estate agent, and just started talking about buying a house. And I actually found this place that came on the market. It was a really good price. This little old lady was moving out of her house to downsize. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It was about 600 or 700 square feet smaller. The lot was half the size. It didn't have a pool, but it was nice. It was clean. It was efficient. It had been well taken care of. And most importantly, it would have made our mortgage payment half of what we were paying for the old house that we were living in. So I look over at Jocelyn. I remember showing her on the computer. I was like, let's go look at this house. Let's go look at this house. We got to go look at it, or somebody will buy it. Jocelyn is still not totally convinced that we need to move. And we haven't even sold our house yet. And I wanted to go look at this house.
I honestly did not love this idea for many reasons, but I did not want to move out of my house. I liked my house. We were comfortable in the house. We had lived there for a few years, and I just didn't want to do it. I liked my neighborhood, but at the same time, I could see the benefit of doing this. I knew that if we wanted a realistic chance of me feeling comfortable with us leaving our jobs, that we would have to make a major sacrifice somewhere. We talk about this all the time. A lot of people want to do the sum of the parts. They want to stop going to Starbucks, and they want to eat out only once a month, and, add up all these little things. But we were like, no, that's not going to make a big enough difference. We need to just cut these payments in half. And the way to do that, the quickest and easiest, was by moving houses.
It's like preparing for rain. The farmer doesn't wait till it starts raining to plant the crops. You go out and you get yourself ready so that when the rain comes, your crops will grow. And that was what we had to do. So we went and looked at this house. We loved it. We put our house for sale. We looked at this house again. We made an offer on it, and we sold our other house. And before we knew it, in a whirlwind, we were moving out of our house, our comfortable, good enough house, the cookie cutter American dream house, into this older house that was built back in the 30s and the 40s, but it was nice, clean, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, a lot smaller, and we were making that sacrifice to do it. This is when people really thought we were going crazy. People were like, why did you move out of that house? I had one guy tell me, man, I dreamed of moving into a house like you lived in, and you're moving out of it to go in this smaller house. What are you doing? My coaching staff didn't know what we were doing because I was rushing out of practice to move stuff. We were right in the middle of 2-a-days, so I had to come back and practice at night, and all this craziness was going on. And a lot of people started looking at us sideways like, are you guys going bankrupt? Have you lost everything?
A lot of people still didn't know about the online business. Yeah. So they're like, oh, these people, they must really be struggling. Unbeknownst to them, we're doing really well, but we
wanted to do better.
Yes, we had something bigger in mind.
And this is kind of an important part we've noticed in anyone's online journey. When you start doing the crazy things to make your dreams come true, other people are not going to understand because they're not brave enough to do it. They just haven't come to that point yet where they have a strong enough why to force their hand, and they're going to think you're crazy, and they're going to discourage you, and they're going to talk about you behind your back and try to figure out what you're doing. And you have to be prepared for that. If you really want your life to be the best life it can ever be, you can't worry about what anyone else is saying. You can't worry if everybody else understands your plan. You just have to go for it. And that's what we were doing.
If people don't think you're crazy, then you might not be dreaming big enough.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. If everyone thinks everything's normal with you, it might be. And if you keep doing normal, you're never going to do exceptional. And that's what online business can give you, is an exceptional life, a life of abundance, a life you're dreaming about, a life you want, not just an average, good enough life that everybody settles for.
All right. So at this point, it was May of 2013.
Yes.
I think May of 2013. We had just moved into the smaller house.
And we actually called this our Freedom House. The reason we called it the Freedom House, because we knew that if we were going to get the freedom we wanted to be able to quit our jobs and take total control of our lives, to control our own destiny, that we would have to do something to our pocketbook to give us a chance to be free. We loved that house. It was freeing up cash in our budget. It was freeing up time in our lives because it was less we had to take care of. And eventually we knew it was going to free us from working for other people.
And at this point, we're really excited because I now have a full year of lesson plans because I have been working on them all year, selling them each month. And by this time, I have the full package. And it's coming up on the back to school time. We just thought in our minds, this is probably going to be a really, really exciting time.
Usually every niche in online business has a calendar that it follows. You're doing certain things at certain times. And a basketball coach's calendar looks different than a football coach's calendar. The real estate calendar for realtors, realtors sell more houses in warm months than they do in cold months. I mean, every niche has its ebb and flow. And we knew that a lot of people were enjoying summer vacation and were probably going to go back to school, and they hadn't worked a lot on lesson plans. So it was going to be a great time to try to sell more. Our audiences had grown. I had coaches following me now. Jocelyn had a lot of elementary librarians following her now. We had both done podcasts to try to build our audience, and it was going really good. So we knew things were going to go great, but we didn't have any idea how awesome things were going to go. We always tell people it takes a long time and a lot of hard work to become an overnight success. And the next part of our journey, when things really explode, was a result of a year of constant, dedicated 7-day a week, roll up your sleeves and get after it. And that's what made all this possible. So we roll into July and we start selling Jocelyn's lesson plans, start selling my playbooks. And in July alone, we made $15,000. This was the first time we had a 5-figure month. And our minds were just blown, because when you're used to living paycheck to paycheck, when you're used to your money running out on Thursday and getting paid on Friday, and you're used to making $5,000 a month, period, for 2 people working full time, and all of a sudden you have $15,000 sitting in your bank account in 30 days of effort. And it really wasn't even 30 days because you started selling them like July 15th. Basically, we had $15,000 when we looked at each other like, wow, this is amazing. The next month, though, was crazy. Nothing could have ever prepared us for August of 2013.
So in Kentucky, school starts in early August, or at least it did at this time. And we had already gone back to school at this point.
We had not signed our contracts, though, because after that $15,000 month, we were like, let's not sign our contracts just in case, and we'll just put them off as long as we can. But we're going to go back to work. You don't have to sign your contract to go back to work. You have to have it signed by sometime like in late September or something like that.
And let me just say that I had absolutely no intention of leaving my job until that May.
Yeah, we were going to work a whole year and save the money.
That was the plan. We were just going to save. And then once May rolled around, then we were going to leave.
In August of 2013, we made $36,000. $36,000 on top of the $15,000 that we had made in July. And I knew I had to talk to Jocelyn. I knew I had to talk Jocelyn into this. We had to quit right then. We had just made in 6 weeks more money than one of our teachers' salaries in a year. That was more money than we were actually bringing in a year of work somewhere else. How could we possibly take this to the next level? So I approached Jocelyn.
I still have no idea how you talked me into this. I was absolutely adamant that we were not leaving until May. I needed my nest egg. I needed to make sure that everything was going to be okay. $36,000 sounds like a lot, and it is a lot of money. Like, still, to me, that's a lot of money.
But you got to pay taxes on it.
But there are expenses involved. We still had to save some money. And $36,000, if you make $0 for the rest of the year, that's not going to take you very far. So those were some of the things that were weighing on my mind as he's trying to talk me into quitting. I'm like, it's just too early. We don't have enough saved.
So talking to Jocelyn, and we go through all the fears. Jocelyn just told you a bunch of those fears and objections. We talked about, what if we don't make any more money? What if that's it? What if it runs out next year and we don't have a job to go to? How are we going to put food on the table? What about insurance? Like, how are we going to have health insurance? You know, that was a huge question. I had to prove that we could find good health insurance, or at least pay for health insurance with the money we were making before she would even think about it. Would people still listen to us if we quit? We were banking on being experts. I was a football coach. She was a librarian. We were working in those jobs. What if we weren't working in those jobs anymore? Would people still listen to us? So there were a lot of things that we talked about that could have held us back and made us not take this chance. But in the end of the day, I was convinced that, one, we weren't going to make zero money. I mean, that's ridiculous. We've been making money for over a year. We're going to make something. It's not like we're going to have to spend all that money in savings to live for the next year. We were going to make money. It was going to happen. We would do whatever it took to make it happen. Insurance. Millions of people buy insurance. We couldn't let a little bit of insurance by an employer be what kept us in bondage and slavery for the rest of our life. And most people don't even realize they take that money off of your salary, off of your paycheck at most jobs.
So it's not like free insurance.
It's not free
You're
insurance.
still paying for it.
I mean, think about it. If you went to a job that didn't give you insurance, they would just pay you the money and let you go shop for your own insurance. So I was able to find health insurance for the same amount, basically, that I was getting at school, what they were withholding from my paycheck. We knew that we were going to make some money, and we'd already moved into this small house. We've done everything we need to do. We've walked to the end of the high dive. We climbed the ladder. That was scary. We held the rails as we were walking out on the edge, and there we were, standing with our toes dangling over the diving board. All we had to really do was jump, and it was probably going to be awesome. There could be things go wrong. You could belly buster. You could miss the water, I guess, but it didn't matter. I just felt it in my heart and in my gut that at that moment we had to jump and we had to quit our jobs.
And I knew that either way that Shane was not going back to work. So I could either let him hang out at home by himself and get nothing done, or I was going to have to quit too. So we decided, me kicking and screaming, that we would try it and jump in and just see what happened.
One of the things that we did really at the very last moment when we decided to do this is we kind of said, what's the worst case scenario? What is the worst possible thing that happened? If a year from now the money does run out and we didn't make a dime and nothing else is going on, I mean, the worst case scenario is we go find new jobs. Like, that's really it. And when you start thinking about the worst case scenarios in your life, they just don't happen. The things you're scared of are not real. They just are things in our head. Our brain is designed to keep us alive, right? So it makes us scared of things, so we kind of stay steady and we don't mess things up. But you can't live like that. Sometimes you've got to take a chance if you're ever going to try to get to the promised land. You can't sit there on the mountaintop and look down at the giants and be scared and say, I'll never go in. I'll just stay here in the desert. And that's what we did. We decided that we were going to quit our jobs. So we came up with this big, elaborate plan of how we were going to quit our jobs because we live in a small area. We knew if one of us did it on a different day that it would spread like wildfire. And we had already moved into this smaller house and now we were about to quit our jobs. What were people going to say? And teachers just do not quit jobs in September. It just doesn't happen. Teachers quit job at the end of the year or maybe at Christmas
like
time.
if there's a medical emergency,
Right.
something like that. Somebody might leave in the middle of the year,
In
but
Southeast
people just
Kentucky,
don't leave in the middle of the year.
It's just too good of a job. Nobody's going to do it. So we knew that it was going to cause an uproar for a little bit when we did this with our family, friends, and community. So we had decided we were going to go in on this same day. We were going to go in really early. We were going to catch our principals there before that anyone else could get there. We were going to put in our 2-week notices on the same day at the same time and then deal with the aftermath after it happened. Jocelyn's school started a little bit earlier, so she got there first.
My principal is brand new. He's been there probably like 3 months, something like that.
And he was young, too.
Yeah, super young guy, super nice guy. And I get there at school and I go in and I'm like, hey, I need to talk to you. And it just so happened they had come around to collect the contracts like the day before. So it was a really good day that all this worked out. So got him to come and talk to me. And I was like, hey, listen, I have started a business online and I'm going to be leaving this job. And he was like shocked,
A librarian job, I want to note too, is probably the hardest job to get in the school because there's only one and they stay a long time. So, and this was a really good school too. So really hard job to get.
Yeah. And it was also hard for me to make that decision for that reason too, because I loved my school. I love the people there. It wasn't like a horrible job to go to every day, but it also didn't allow me the type of freedom that I have now. So I was kind of conflicted, especially right leading up until we quit. I even cried on the way to school a couple of days. So it wasn't an easy decision for me. I go in and I tell him and he's like, okay. Like he didn't even really know what to say. He's just like, all right, I guess I have to call the superintendent now. And I'm like, oh gosh, okay. I didn't say anything about Shane. So then I messaged Shane and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, did you tell your principal? And he's like, well, no.
I got there and there was no one in the principal's office. And I waited a few minutes and I think the secretary came in. I was like, hey, is the principal here yet? And she was like, oh no, he's not coming in today. And I was like, oh no. Or this grand master plan that we had worked for, he had meetings or something like messed up and Jocelyn had quit her job. So here I am on eggshells all day long, just sitting in class waiting for people, anyone to send me a message like, I heard Jocelyn quit her job. Why did she quit her job? What's happening? Are you guys okay? Is everything okay? So we sat there the whole time and I got through that. I got through practice and I got home and nobody said anything that day.
So I'm there at my school and everything is going fine. Nobody really knows it yet because he didn't say anything, but they had to post the job that day. So he called a special meeting for after school where I got to basically announce to my coworkers that I was leaving. And if there were ever a time that every ounce of oxygen were sucked out of a room, it was that day.
Yeah.
People were just shocked.
Flabbergasted.
They didn't even know what to think. Just absolutely shocked.
So we get home and our grand plan goes off the railroad tracks. I knew that I had to get the principal in the morning. So I actually texted him that night and said, are you going to be in really early in the morning? I need to talk to you. And he said, yes. And I was like, can you meet me at like 6:45? And he's like, sure. Is everything okay? And I'm like, things are great. It's great. No problems. So I go get there before him. I wait for him. He gets there. He opens his door. And I'm sure this was the last thing on his mind. Here's the defensive coordinator of the football team, history teacher. I had just gotten tenure, which means basically you got a job for life in a school district. So I don't know what he was thinking, but I'm sure it wasn't this. So he sits down and he goes, hey, what's up? What do you need? And I looked at him and I just bluntly pushed across my letter of resignation and said, hey, I'm quitting my teaching job. I'm going to put in my 2-week notice. My wife and I have started a business and it's going well. And I just want to go all in on this. And he just sat there with his eyebrows up at the top of his head, stunned looking at this because teachers just don't quit jobs like this. And he said to me, are you sure? He's like, are you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, yes, I'm positive, 100% positive. Jocelyn quit her librarian job
Well, we haven't
yesterday.
been thinking about this for like months.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I'm positive. Yeah. And he goes, are you still going to coach football? It's right in the middle of the season. And I was like, yes, I did stay and coach the rest of the season out. We had a good team. I'd been with these kids for 5 years since they were like 8th graders. And I said, yes. And I remember him going, man, you got 2 kids, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, are you sure they're going to eat? You're going to be able to put food on the table? And I'm like, I hope so. We're going to do our best. We're going to try.
We're not real sure, but
we'll see what happens.
We're going to try it out.
It was actually kind of one of those moments where I was second guessing myself. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Jocelyn's already quit and I just quit. And man, should I back out now? Because what are people going to say about me if I'm the man, I'm the husband, and all this goes wrong and we don't have food and we can't pay our mortgage? And that really hit me at that moment. We were talking about quitting, but then something happened. And it really gave me everything I needed to know that I was doing the right thing. I remember the principal looked back at me and said, you've been teaching for a while now, right? I said, yeah, man, I've been teaching for 9 years. This is my 10th year teaching. And he goes, almost 10 years? Man, you've got all that money in retirement. You got 10 years of retirement and you're just going to give all that up? And I didn't say this to him. I said something else like, yeah, it's okay. I'll be all right. But I remember thinking when he said that, yeah, but there's 18 left. Teachers have to wait 27 years to retire. I only had 9 in. I was on my 10th. That means I had 18 and a half years before I could even think about retiring, before I could think about doing what I wanted, before I could think about the freedom of going out and making your own decisions and not having to be at the 9 to 5 every day. And it just reinforced that mentality that society beats into us to trade your freedom, to trade the best years of your life away for a little bit of security, a steady paycheck, maybe some insurance. The only thing he could think out at that time was, gosh, you've given up 9 years of retirement. Didn't even think about the other 18, 20 years I would have had to work just to get there.
Or the opportunity that we're now having because of leaving all this behind. It's just interesting that people don't even go to that. They just go to, oh, well,
what could go wrong?
You've already built in all this, so you can't leave that. No, what about the opportunity?
Yeah, there's a huge opportunity cost in staying in your 9 to 5. One, the best working years of your life, all the money you could be making somewhere else, all the people that you could help, total control of your life and spending time with your children and your spouse. Those were the things that were going through our mind, but these other people couldn't latch onto that. So I actually had called my football coach. I let him know the day before, I'm not quitting football coaching, but I am quitting my job. Didn't want it to blindside you. Didn't want you to think I was bailing on you. So he knew about it, but still it spread like wildfire. But some funny things started happening. Some people started whispering in the corners. Some people started figuring it out, but I had multiple people that day come up to me and shake my hand and be like, oh man, I wish I had the guts to do this 20 years ago. Or, man, I wish I could do that, but I just got too many responsibilities. And I started realizing, that was the first moment I realized there's a lot of other people that wanted to do what we were doing and just never took action, never followed through with it. And that encouraged me. And that was what gave us the strength to keep moving and go forward.
At this point, word is starting to get out that these crazy people have left their teaching jobs, which again is unheard of in this area. People are starting to ask me, what is it you guys are doing? Are you sure you can make money at this?
And have we lost our minds? Right. So Jocelyn's friends were asking her, a lot of her friends were stay-at-home moms at the time. And I can distinctly remember the moment that I told my mom and dad that we were both quitting our jobs. And I can remember we told them and it seemed to be kind of okay. My dad was supportive, kind of just yielding that we could make that call. But I do remember my mom cornering me in her kitchen and she pointed at me and she said, Shane Sams, you have flipped out. You have lost your mind. You've got babies. You've got responsibilities. And she was totally just concerned about us and our grandchildren. But I remember she thought we were going crazy and had lost our mind. And it's so funny because when my mom said that, when we flipped out later on, when we would start Flipped Lifestyle, that's why we named it Flipped Lifestyle, was because my mom and everybody else around us thought we had lost our mind, thought we'd flipped out. So we said, yeah, we have, and it's better. So we're going to call it the Flipped Lifestyle. That's what we live. So we told our parents, we told our friends, and another crazy moment was Jocelyn and I at the time were leading a small group at our church. We led about 12 couples. We were all couples in our 30s who had children under 10 years old. And I remember we were about to quit our jobs. And after we told everybody, we said, hey, let's get some prayer. We're going to need it to really stay focused and make this thing work. At the end of the Bible school lesson, I looked around and said, hey, guys, I just want to let you guys know, Jocelyn and I have both quit our jobs. We both resigned last week. We're going to be going full time in our own business. and it looked like someone had tasered everybody in that room.
I've said this before, but the best word I can use to describe the reaction is that they were bewildered. That's not a word that I would normally use in
Yes.
any normal conversation, but it totally fits this. Like, people were bewildered. They could not believe that we would leave our jobs.
I mean, bug eyes, jaws on the floor. I remember after I said it, I thought a couple people would be like, oh, all right, let's pray. And everyone just sat there for a minute in this awkward silence staring at us. And I said, let's bow our heads. And we said a prayer, and people came up to us and were just totally shocked.
Our last day was officially Thursday, September 26th, 2013. And the reason that I remember this is because we had a training on Friday, the 27th. And when we were talking about quitting our jobs, we were like, there's really no need to go to that training because we're quitting. So
Let's make that the last day we work.
let's just make Thursday the last day we work. We did, and it was so awesome because Shane's friends were texting him from the meeting like, this is the most terrible day ever.
These meetings are like 6 hours long, and it's someone reading a PowerPoint slide to you for 6 hours. That's how teacher trainings go. So,
And especially for librarians, like, most of it is not even relevant to you. I was like, yes, not MPD. But yeah, we just hung out. We got some tea and coffee. We wore our robes because that's the entrepreneurial uniform. And
got to get up and leave our pajamas on. That was awesome too, right?
I went outside. I read a book just because I could. And we just had a great day.
Yeah, that was a Friday, September 27th. We call it our quit-iversary. That's the day, our Freedom Day, the day that we were sitting in the Freedom House, this house we had downsized into, and we were looking at each other saying, it happened. It really happened. We set a goal and we made it work. We saw an example of somebody else making their entire living online, and we made it happen for ourselves. We had willed a lifestyle into being because we had decided to do it. That was just a great moment in our life of just freedom and relaxation and awesomeness. But it was also kind of a little scary because we were sitting there going, oh, wow, we literally have to make our own money now. We have to do this full time. There will not be a paycheck in 2 weeks. There was that little moment of, we've made it to the promised land.
Now what?
Now what happens? Then, this can't be it. And it wasn't. So this was September. We roll into November, and December was kind of the first scary moment because teachers and the people in our niche, everybody goes on Christmas vacation. Everybody starts spending money on Christmas
other
presents and
things.
things like that. So the sales dropped a little bit.
And you have to remember, we had some savings. I mean, I wouldn't have quit our jobs if we didn't have savings, but we didn't have a ton of money. We didn't have some kind of nest egg or like a trust fund or anything like that.
If that money ran out, we had no money.
Yeah. And Shane approaches me around this time with an idea.
So we go through January, and the sales had dipped again from the January before. February wasn't looking great. And I kind of said, we've got to shake it up. We've got to do something. We've got to surround ourselves with people who are doing this too. And we've got to go talk to someone who's farther ahead in the race than we are.
And we can't just wait till summer. We knew
No.
summer would be good again because it's back to school. But at this point, I was kind of like, we got to make something happen
Yeah.
before summer.
In January, we kind of felt like maybe we had made a little bit of a mistake. We knew the money would last until summer and we were okay, and that we were making sales and we were starting to work harder and starting to learn how to be entrepreneurs. But we can't have this status quo. This can't just keep happening for the next 2 years. We've got to do something crazy. We've got to invest in ourselves, and we've got to do it with our time and our money. So I told Jocelyn that Pat Flynn, the original guy that I had learned all this from on his podcast, I had reached out to Pat a couple times on email, and we'd had some great conversations. This was kind of before he became huge, but it wasn't enough to really give us some great advice. And I said, Pat is doing a one-day workshop in San Diego, California. There's only 20 tickets available, but they were expensive. It was going to take us like a couple $1,000 to go, and then another couple thousand to fly there, get hotels, fly back, and all that. We were very anti-debt. Jocelyn and I don't like credit cards and things like that. So I wanted to spend our money on this live event. I wanted to go to this live event, ask him some questions, meet some people who were doing this too, so we would have some contacts and know other people that understood online business. And I said, let's go, Jocelyn, let's go to San Diego.
I was very apprehensive as usual because that's how I roll. But this was pretty much going to take a lot of what we had
It was
left.
going to drain at least half of our savings to go to this trip.
And
probably.
we've never really talked about this a whole lot on the show, but I think it's important for people to know that sometimes you have to take a risk to get a big reward. This was yet another time that Shane's like, I really, really think that we need to do this. And he's like, I'm going to go. You can come or you can not go. And that doesn't sit well with me. So I'm like, you know what? We're both going. It's a big investment for us. I mean, it's a lot of money.
We had never been away from both of our children for that long of a time.
It's a lot of time away from our kids. We have to find someone to watch our kids for us. All those things are things that you have to consider when you start doing things like this.
We decided to roll the dice again and make this sacrifice, and we signed up for this event. It turned out to be the best money, the best time that we could have ever spent in our entire life. We went out and got to meet Pat. He gave us a great big hug because we had told him our story of how we had discovered him, and he helped be the example for what we wanted to do. He was like, oh, I'm proud of you guys. You did an amazing thing. And we told him about quitting our jobs, and he was like, whoa, that's crazy. You know, he's like, I lost my job. I can't believe you guys decided to quit your job. You know, you rolled the dice instead of somebody forcing your hand. And we got to ask him some questions, and there were a lot of smart people in that room, because when you go to a live event, when you pay money for training, the other people there are too. They're doing the same thing. You've eliminated the 90% of the people who are scared, and you've got the 10% of the people who want to do something better in a room.
And I always say, if you want to change the world, you have to surround yourself with world changers. And that's what you do when you go to an event like this.
So we went to the event, got some great advice from Pat and some other people there about our prices were wrong. The reason we were making so little money at the time is because our prices were too low. We raised our prices.
They were way too low.
And they told us why they were too low. And we were like, you're right. And we did that. We met some amazing people there. Jessica and Cliff LaRue, Amazon experts, two great friends of ours still. Jill and Josh Stanton from Screw the 9 to 5, two of our great friends. Just so many people that we met in that room.
And we still talk to
that we
today.
Still talk to every day. People who would eventually join our community and become Flip Your Life community members and go out and start their own online businesses. We met these people in this room. We came back with just rejuvenated energy, hope, excitement. Most importantly, we had a strategic plan to help us change our financial future and really ramp this thing up. So we come back, we raise our prices, and things really started picking up. We started making a lot more money monthly. And then we got to the summertime, and just like the year before, where we had made $15,000 in July, we blew it up and made $70,000 in 1 week in July. We talked a little bit about this when we were on Entrepreneur on Fire's podcast, John Lee Dumas. In 1 week, we made $70-something thousand. And in August of 2014, we made $144,000 in sales.
So
in a
we're
single
in
month.
2013, we were having 5-figure months. In 2014, we were having 5-figure days.
Just days. Every single day, it exploded. Pat had us on his podcast in August of that year. We told our story, and we got so much amazing feedback on that. And people started hearing, you know, hey, here's Shane and Jocelyn, two teachers from Kentucky who did this online business thing. Well, of course, word got around our town what was going on. People heard us on podcasts and things like that. And people started coming up to us and saying, what are you doing? This is what you've been doing this whole time? This is why you quit your job? Wow. That makes total sense now. And it was so funny because all the haters and the doubters and the naysayers, all those people who were shocked and all those people who thought that we were crazy, their tunes all of a sudden changed because they got the whole story. And all those people that were like, why? Why are you doing all this? Why are you doing this? They started saying, wait, how? How are you doing this?
How can I do it?
And how can I do it too? So one of the people that came up to ask us how we were doing it was one of Jocelyn's friends named Lindsay. Lindsay was a teacher also, and she had decided to be a stay-at-home mom and not go back to work. Her husband, great guy, great man, wanted his wife to be able to stay home. They're going to homeschool their kids. And, you know, it was just a great choice that they made. But she was like, hey, I'm at home. I could probably make some extra money doing what you guys do. Do you think I could do anything? And Jocelyn was like, sure. So we showed her how to do some things. She made some products. Jocelyn helped her sell those things. And lo and behold, Lindsay was able to make $1,000 just from selling digital products online, just like we did. We didn't even realize it at the time, but that really, really had a huge impact on Lindsay and her family. One day at church, her husband came up to me, he's a good friend of mine, and said, hey, Shane, I don't know if I've ever thanked you and Jocelyn. I don't know if Lindsay and I have ever told you how much that money that you taught Lindsay how to make made in our life. It made a huge difference in our life. It's the reason that we're able to let her stay home. I'm going to invest that in my education, maybe get my PhD, maybe do some other things. And he literally had a tear in his eyes and kind of got choked up and said, that money is like a mortgage payment. It's a car payment. It changed our life. And I just wanted to say thank you. Jocelyn had went to the nursery to get the kids. We met each other in the car. And I remember getting in the car and I was just looking straight ahead. And we were driving out of the parking lot of church that day. And I looked over at Jocelyn and told her what had happened. And we were both just kind of sitting there in silence. I looked over and said, you know, what we know is important. We figured out how two people working full time, raising kids, time pressed, parents, you know, on a limited budget. We figured out how to make an online business work, how to change your life through online business. And what we know and what we taught to Lindsay and her husband changed their life. So why couldn't we teach this to other families, to other couples, and change their life too?
That's really what pushed us to start Flip Lifestyle. We knew that we wanted to help other people to be able to change their lives as well. So we started thinking about ways that we could do this for lots of people and not just a couple.
And, you know, a lot of people start businesses like Flip Lifestyle, I think, when they first start out because maybe their first idea didn't work or they want to be coaches.
Or they see other people doing it and think that that's the way to make millions of dollars. That wasn't why we started this.
Yeah, like we were making a lot of money in our other thing. We had a passive income business, totally passive. We made the lessons and they never changed. So we could just put them up there and sell them. But we really felt a calling in our life to really get into the game and help other people just like us change their lives. People who had dreams of building an online business, people who were tired of working for bad bosses, tired of all of their time being consumed by their job, tired of missing ball games, tired of missing the first time their kid walked or crawled or said their first word because they were on the road working. We said, no, what if there's other people out there like our friends that need this kind of service and just don't even know where to start? We fumbled through the dark for months to even figure out how to start a website. What if we could help people ramp the learning curve and get there sooner? And we started helping people. We launched Flip Lifestyle. The first opt-in we ever put out there was on Pat Flynn's podcast. We were launching Flip Lifestyle as that happened. And we got some response from that. And people discovered us and heard our story and reached out to us. And we started this Flip Your Life e-course and community that would allow people to start online business. People like Jeanette Stein. Jeanette was an algebra teacher that came to us. We taught her how to start her online business, get her membership rolling. And she quit her job 3 months after she got into the Flip Your Life community. People like Evan Burse. Evan Burse was an artist working at what he thought was his dream job. He was an animator for Marvel Studios. And he was making a little money off YouTube, but he really didn't know how to make money online. He came to us and we showed him how to set up a course and how to sell it to his audience. And he made $30,000 his first month and he was able to quit his job. And now he has an awesome brand called The Cartoon Block, where he teaches other people how to draw and how to start a career in animation. People from all walks of life in all parts of the world. Rena Oriana, she was a flamenco dance instructor in California. And she was like, hey, I'm teaching these lessons to people in real life. Could I do this online? So we were like, yeah, we built this awesome course of her teaching flamenco dancing. And she was able to get like 200 members within a few months, paying her like $39 a month. Just awesome stories. People like Rebecca Decker, a healthcare professional who was a professor like in college. And she was leading these women who were doing this. It was all about childbirth and pregnancy. And she was able to start this thing and quit her job. Brad Barrett, an accountant from Virginia, he came to us and I was like, hey, so do you want to start a business about accounting? And he's like, no, I actually really like Disneyland. And I figured out that you can go there for free if you get credit card points. So I developed this system to help other families do it too. So he started this business and he quit his job like 3 or 4 months later, and just hundreds more. At this point, we have over 4,000 success stories in our success forums inside the community. And it's just been the most rewarding thing in the world to not only flip our lives, to help other people live the flip lifestyle as well.
That really brings us to today. We continued this journey for the past few years, and several things that have happened, and we kind of had to skip over them for time's sake. But just looking back at it 4 years ago, I never would have believed that we would be where we are today. Not too long ago, just even a few months ago, we sold Elementary Librarian for a contract of 7 figures. And I'm still just in awe about that. That's something we created that we were able to sell and have a 7-figure sale. I mean, that's just still unbelievable to me. Like, I still have to just remind myself that that's real.
I was doing the math the other day and I was looking at our teacher salaries, making like $30,000 a year. And like, you barely make $1 million over your entire lifetime in our old 9-to-5 jobs. now we've created this online business that has literally made us millions and millions of dollars over the last couple of years. And that's just not possible working for someone else. There's a quote that says you can spend your time building your dreams, or you can go work for someone else and build theirs. And now we know in our life, we're building our own dreams. We're building our futures. We're building generational wealth for our children. And that's all possible because of our online business. And that's all possible because we took a chance while we were working full time and raising kids and got started. About a year ago, we were living in the Freedom House still. We loved our house. We were comfortable. And one day at the gym, our success story had gotten out. People had heard about us and what we were doing. And a buddy of mine walked up and was talking to me about our story. He had heard a podcast about us. And he's a guy I grew up with. He's a realtor in town. And his name's Chris. And Chris said, "Hey, man, when you going to move out of that little house you bought?" I said, "That's my Freedom House, baby. I ain't never moving out of it. I'm content. I'm happy. I'm comfortable. That's awesome, man. I barely pay anything for that place." And he said, "Nah, man, you're doing well. You need to live differently. You need to look for something new." And I was like, "Well, we thought about looking for houses." And he said, "What are you looking for?" Because he's a real good realtor, he is. And I said, "Well, I don't know what we'd be looking for right now, man. Probably something a little bigger. And I'd love to have a little water." And I was thinking just a small pond, something where you go drink coffee on your porch and the mist could kind of fly up in the mornings. And he looked at me with a real big grin and said, "I know where there's some water. You want to go look at it?" And I said, "Sure." So I come home again to Jocelyn with another crazy idea. And I said, "Hey, I talked to Chris at the gym. Let's go look at this house." And Jocelyn was like, "I didn't know we were buying a house."
Yeah, like I had no intention of moving. I was perfectly happy. Like we hadn't even really talked about when we were going to move. So yeah, then this crazy idea drops in my lap.
And so I get Jocelyn in the car and we drive just about 5-6 minutes out of town. We turn the corner and we see this 5,000 square foot brick house sitting beside a 10-acre private lake surrounded by 30 acres of woodland. And no neighbors, no nothing. It looked like something out of a postcard, just a quintessential Kentucky estate. He pulls us in. It's got a balcony sitting on the back of it, looking out over the lake. And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, where are we?" And I fell in love immediately. And I looked over at Jocelyn. We walked out on the balcony and we were looking out at the lake. And I looked over at him. I'm like, "You mean all this is ours if we buy this place?" And he's like, "Yep, it's all yours." And I looked over at Jocelyn. I said, "I've got to live here." We went through this crazy negotiation with this nutball that was living there at the time. He would make offers and then we would accept them. And then he would pull back and raise the price. And I was getting furious. We were actually in Colorado on a vacation. We thought we had a contract. We thought we had accepted this house. We were so happy to build our future in this place. And the guy was like, "No, I changed my mind. I want to go up." We hadn't signed the papers yet. Long story short, we ended up getting this home. We are moved in now. We've been living here for about a year, and it's just an absolute dream location. We have so much land. Our kids love it. I was driving Anna Jo around the property the other night, and she was like, "Why would anyone sell this place?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Look at it. I just love living here. Why did the man that lived here even sell us this place? I would never sell this place." So they love it. Our kids are happy, and we now call this our forever home. This is our forever home. This is where we are going to raise our children. This is where we're going to enjoy our life. This is the fruit of all the labor for the last few years. And now our goal is to help as many families as possible find the freedom that we have through online business so that they can someday find their forever home and live their dream lifestyle just like we did. And the best part is we've still got the Freedom Home. Once everything starts rolling, it really starts rolling, guys. When you start building success, success breeds success. When we moved into our forever home, we really were torn about selling the Freedom Home. That home meant so much to us. It was like the gateway to freedom, that sacrifice we had made, that all in, do whatever it takes to get to where we wanted to be. And we said, well, wait a minute. We've paid this Freedom Home off. Why don't we make this a rental property? So we actually started a little real estate company, and now someone is renting that. That house is worth about $1,000 a month. So this little home that we sacrificed into to half our mortgage so we could barely get by on our bills is now making us money. And that's just another example that when you get started, when you take action, great things will keep happening.
And so as we sit here every day, we often get the same question. How did you do it? How did you get here? And we did it by working hard. We invested time and money. We tried things. We didn't just sit around and wish that life would be different. We took action and did what it took to get to the next level. We didn't give up when things got tough. We did have tough times. I think some people think that we have our little magic wand and we just wave it and everything always works out, but it's not true. We just found ways to overcome problems as they came up. We also had a strong why. We had a reason that we wanted to quit. We had dreams, we have goals, and we just kept walking forward. And I always say that baby steps get you closer to your goal than standing still. We were kind of people that we took big, giant steps. If you ever played Mother May I back in the 80s, like I did, the baby steps, they'll get you somewhere, but the big, giant steps are going to get you closer to your goal.
We found examples of other people like us who had made it. It's so important to find the right mentors, to find the right people to teach you the way you want to go. Like Pat, we followed his example of how he did things. We met other people who were at our level and working toward it. We surrounded ourselves with the right people, and we removed ourselves from hanging out with the people who weren't going in the same direction that we wanted to go to. All of that added up to the flipped lifestyle, a lifestyle that's totally different than what society tells us, than what the world tells us we have to do. Really what we were all brought up thinking was the only way to live, a life where you have total freedom and total control. And we're going to close up this series here. We've got a lot more parts of the story to tell. We're going to feature a lot more of that in our book. We're going to do a lot more of these podcasts to tell even more parts of our story that we might have had to zoom past. But what we really want you to understand after this series is that if we can do it, you can do it too. We're a couple of school teachers from Southeast Kentucky, and we made it happen. We had a limited budget. We had no time. We were time-pressed parents. We figured out a way to do it. And if we can do it, you can too. We are a real family making our entire living online, and we know that you can do the same. You just have to believe in it. You have to take action. And we know if you do that and you keep putting one foot in front of the other and you keep taking those baby steps, you can flip your life just like we did. All right, guys, that is all the time that we have for this week. We hope you have enjoyed this series about our story, beginning to end, how we started out and how we got to where we are today. We hope that it gave you hope and inspiration, instruction, and everything that you need to take your next step toward your online dreams. We're super excited next week to get back into our interview series. We're going to have another great guest on the Flip Lifestyle podcast, another awesome member of our Flip Your Life community, another person that we can help get to the next level, that we can help flip their life. We'll hope to see you again next week. Make sure you're subscribed on iTunes. And if you've enjoyed this series, if you enjoy our podcast, make sure you head over to iTunes, leave us a review, tell us what you think so that we can improve our ratings on iTunes and more people can discover the Flip Lifestyle podcast and discover what's possible. So until next time, we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.
Bye.